Oi, pessoal, boa tarde. Estamos aqui, povo começando a tarde. A gente vai fazer fez uma troca aqui, a Cilene ia falar tarde, o encerramento, então a gente tem que trocar, porque o Enoch está na universidade, está e a internet lá é muito ruim. A cabeada é boa, mas é muito ruim, e não está conseguindo, cai, enfim. Então, a Cilene se ofereceu aqui no chat que podia trocar e falar enquanto resolve a situação lá do Enoch para falar às 6. Cilene, muitíssimo obrigado por ter ouvido aqui a nossa situação emergencial. Daqui a pouco eu troco as legendas dos títulos da conversa. A Cilene é uma pessoa muito querida, que me deu ano passado um presentaço de aniversário, 2021, junto com a Cristina, um presentaço de aniversário. No dia do meu aniversário, exatamente no dia, me convidou para fazer uma conferência no encontro do GTTG. Foi um presentaço assim, muito grande. E é um prazer estar aqui recebendo hoje a Cilene para falar um pouco para a gente do que tem feito em homenagem ao Jairo e à Ruth. Do que tem feito em homenagem ao...
So can I start? I cannot hear you well at all. So I think I should... Oi?
Você também acho que me ouve com um pouco de atraso, né?
Tá com um pouco de atraso, mas eu vou tentar começar aqui. Pode ser? I cannot hear you. This is misworking. So let me try to start. Can I? Hold on, let me see this. Can I? Okay, so let me start by saying thanks to Carlos. He's a great spirit, this guy. He did a wonderful job putting all of this together. I mean, it might be misworking now, but it's a great work. And deixa eu falar em português, né? Deixa eu falar em português agora, porque é sempre bom falar na língua da gente quando a gente vai agradecer alguém. Estou aqui meio confusa, mas é melhor eu me ajustar aqui. Eu não estou entendendo se vocês estão me ouvindo ou não, mas vamos lá. Eu queria agradecer, então, ao Carlos por ter organizado esse evento, né? É sempre bom a gente ter algum tempo para passar junto, algum tempo para conversar, trocar nossas ideias. E, em nome de todo o GT, nosso GT de Teoria da Gramática, eu realmente agradeço ao Carlos por ter feito essa homenagem ao Jairo e à Ruth, que são pessoas tão queridas, né? Eu penso que reconhecer o trabalho de membros de um grupo é reconhecer o valor do próprio grupo, né? E eu tenho muito orgulho de ser desse nosso grupo. É um grupo pequeno que trabalha com muita afinco, né? Com muita força, com muita energia. A Ruth e o Jairo têm uma trajetória de pesquisa e docência incrível, né? E merece, claro, todo o nosso amor e todo o nosso reconhecimento. E eu fiquei pensando aqui dos vários momentos que eu pude compartilhar ideias acadêmicas, estar com a Ruth e o Jairo, e eu me lembrei que, em algum momento, nós três estivemos juntos em Maryland, né? E eu era aluna de doutorado naquela época, a Ruth estava lá passando um tempo, e o Jairo também, e eu adorava seguir a Ruth quando ela ia fumar. Eu gostava de ir atrás dela para ficar lá, tagarelando com ela sobre a vida, sobre minimalismo, teoria, aquisição e tal. E eu aprendi muito com a Ruth. E o Jairo foi muito importante nisso tudo, porque o Jairo me deu um bom conselho. Ele falou assim para mim, olha, vê se você aprende bem aí teoria, minimalismo, aquisição, mas não aprenda a fumar, tá? Então, isso foi um bom conselho do Jairo naquela época, porque acho que ele sacou que eu gostava bem de ficar lá na boca do fundo, né? Lá atrás do departamento, com a galera. Mas a minha trajetória de aprendizagem com o Jairo e a Ruth nunca terminou, né? Isso eu acho que eu vou tentar mostrar isso para vocês hoje nessa minha palestra. E eu vou trazer para esse bate-papo sobre esse assunto que eu vou discutir, o Enoch. O Enoch acabou, porque é outro linguista que eu admiro muito, um linguista que tem um bom trabalho sobre línguas africanas, né? Um trabalho de divulgação, um trabalho teórico, um trabalho não só sobre as línguas africanas, mas a herança dessas línguas, nas línguas crioulas. Então, eu vou tentar colocar esses três num único pacote. Acho que eu fui muito afortunada de ter vindo nessa conferência e encontrar os três no mesmo ambiente. So, I will now talk in English. I'm going to change and talk in English because Enoch is on my title, and I think it's not really fair to cite someone on a title and then give a talk in a language that person cannot access. So I'm going to speak in English from now on. So I'm going to talk about the title. I prepared this talk in Brazilian Portuguese to talk about its title with Ruth, Jairo and Enoch. It's kind of cumbersome, but it's because what I want to do today is I want to discuss sentences like one. Eu corri, preparei essa palestra, which is kind of true. Eu corri, preparei essa palestra. And I did it to discuss it because I thought I would have an opportunity to discuss it with Jairo, Ruth, and Enoch, to have an opportunity to discuss sentences like one with them. And why with them? Well, because I think they bring me from light verbs to zero verb constructions. And the three of them, that's an incredible thing. So Jairo Nunes, as far as I know, advised the first comprehensive work that formally analyzed light verb constructions. Ana Paula shares this thesis. And this thesis served as an empirical and theoretical basis for other minimalist approaches to light verb constructions, including the one from UFRJ by Isabela Pederneira. So Jairo have a lot of contribution about light verbs. And being sincere with you, the first time I heard about light verbs was with Jairo. Jairo was the first person to teach me about minimalism. And so that was the first time I heard about light verbs. And I, more recently, last year, had the opportunity to observe a ping pong match between Ruth Lopes and Isaac Gomes. Isaac Gomes is a PhD student of mine and Joseph Kerr, and he's working on zero verb constructions in Libras, Brazilian Sign Language. And so during his qualifying paper defense, Isaac, he threw the ball, one of his main balls, saying things like, well, languages that have a productive light verb system will develop zero verb constructions. And Ruth Lopes threw the ball back and said something, and she rightly said something like, does Brazilian Portuguese have zero verb constructions? So Isaac was like, well, I think he knew that he lost the match at that moment. And he was like, well, why are you asking this to me? I'm working on Libras. Go talk to Cilene about it. So this is a tricky question, but a tricky answer. But and it left me with this idea that I owe an answer to Ruth Lopes. So here we go. And Enoch is where and how the whole thing started. So Enoch is actually the source of inspiration for Isaac's saying, because in his work on zero verb constructions in Creole languages and African languages, he has this idea that D1, D1 is just a functional element. It realizes, it's a functional element realized within the extended projection of V2. It actually is a realization of aspect. I don't know if you are all familiar with zero verb constructions, but these are constructions like the ones we have here from Gumbe, Igbo, and other languages. So here we have, in number one, you have something like Asiba, collect, rice, eat. meaning Asiba collected rice to eat or something like this, and 1C, poor put water. So it's a sequence, it's a series of verbs, and it brings a lot of questions to us. So what is the structure underlying these complex structures, these complex predicates? Which verb is selecting and theta marking the object in these predicates? What is the semantics of this? How many events does a serial verb construction express? How about its PF? Do serial constructions have a biclause or a monoclausal prosody? Is there a serialization parameter? And typological work like this one done by Ross and Lobstrand has shown that serial verb constructions are, they are kind of unique because they're beautiful stuff, but they are not, they are not like scary. It's really easy to find them. They investigated 325 languages, and they found some stuff like serial verb constructions in 120 of them. So I'm saying some stuff like serial verb constructions because as they acknowledge, it's not so easy to characterize and classify something as a serial verb construction. So and then after I saw this discussion between Isaac and Ruth, I started thinking about sentences like 2, 3, and 4 in Portuguese. Eu corri, preparei a palestra, eu fui escrever aquela carta para ele, eu peguei e dirigi para Brasília, and so I said, like, hey, Brazilian Portuguese has this multi-verb series, and I thought to myself, well, maybe these are serial verb constructions. The first time I heard about serial verb constructions was in a class with Paul Petrovsky, and I was totally fascinated by it. He was talking about Edo and Bacon Stewart's work, and I was totally fascinated by it. So when I started seeing things like when I acknowledged that Brazilian Portuguese had constructions like 2, 3, and 4, I was kind of worried, thinking like, well, maybe I do, I'm hallucinating here, and Brazilian Portuguese is not a serial verb construction. Maybe it's just an outlier, a language that has a multi-verb construction that resembles serial verb constructions, but it does not behave like a serial verb construction, like what you have in English, like come see the cats, go get the key, I saw him fall, I heard her singing. They are superficially, they are very similar to serial verb constructions because you do have a sequence of verbs, come see, go get, saw fall, heard sing, but they are different from serial verb constructions in that first 5 and 6, they do not occur in all tenses. They are just like these frozen expressions. They cannot hold tense. And 7 and 8, they do not behave like serial verb constructions because him, like in 7, him is not him is the object of saw, but semantic subject of fall. And the same you have in 8. Her is the object of heard, but the semantic subject of sing. So the fact is that serial verb constructions, they share the subject. So 7 and 8 are not good candidates for being serial verb constructions. But anyway, so you have all this discussion on the literature, especially among typologists, saying like, well, it's really difficult to establish the typology of serial verb construction. It is true, we do have to establish some criteria in doing so, and I think the criteria we have so far remove 5, 6, 7, and 8 from the class of serial verb constructions. The question is about 2, 3, and 4. Are they serial verb constructions or not? And that's my question. And as I told you, when I saw these things for the first time, at first I said like, wait, do they really exist, or am I hallucinating here, creating data in my mind just because I love serial verb constructions? So I took a look at the internet, and I find out that I was not really hallucinating, because you do have things like, eu corri abrir a porta, eu fui, fiz isso, eu peguei, comprei as passagens. So they are there. So you may say, like following this Castilian saying, no creo que sean zero verb constructions, pero que las hay, right? It's a fact, they exist. So what are they? That's my question. And what I'm going to do here, trying to provide an answer to Ruth, is the following. Yes, Brazilian Portuguese is a zero verb construction. That is, multi-verb sequences in Brazilian Portuguese are cases of zero verb constructions. And I'm not going to disagree with Isaac Gomes. I don't feel good being his advisor and disagreeing with him. So I'm going to keep his saying, and I'm going to throw the ball back to Ruth, saying like, well, Brazilian Portuguese does have a rich like verb system, and it gave rise to zero verb constructions. And so in what follow, I will try to articulate this idea, offering an answer to Ruth Lopes, and I'm going to show you that Jairo and Enoch will help me do so. So first, let's start to differentiate. Let's show how to differentiate zero verb constructions from coordinated structures, because the first thing we have in mind in answer, what kind of structure we have here, is that it's a kind of a hidden coordinated structure. But this structure, these sequences, verbal sequences, do not really behave like coordinated structures. So let's start with Brazilian Sign Language. I'm going to play some videos here. This is Ana Paula, as you see in front of you. It's Ana Paula. She's a native speaker of Brazilian Sign Language. She's Isaac's consultant. And as you see, in 9, you have a coordinated structure. Julia skated, walked in a skate, and went to the hospital. So she did 2 actions. She skated and went to the hospital. The second one, the sentence number 10, is a zero verb construction. Julie skated to the hospital. So you have skated, go. And we can differentiate these 2 structures in sign language because they are signed differently. So as you see in 9, when you have a coordinated structure, the signer, they do like this. So they sign in front of her body. She uses the signing space in front of her body to do, let me see if I can do this, to do skated. Julie skated, then she shifts her body and say go. So she shifts her body. So this is the chord shift, and she signs walk, go in another to her right. So using another signing space. Now in zero verb constructions, she pile walk, skate, and go in the same signing space. So she does like, okay? So let me play this to you, for you. Well, I don't know why, but it's not playing. No idea why. So if you want to see it later, I can show it to you, or just ask me and I'll send you the videos. I don't know what's going on here, but believe me, they are signed differently, and chord shift is the main point here. She shifts her body, and the other one, she piles the verbs all together. I think that most verb constructions are also different from chord structures, Brazilian Portuguese mode verb constructions. First, because when you have like mode verb constructions with runs, something like eu corri, preparei a palestra, and you have a coordination, you have 2 meanings here. First, you can understand eu corri, preparei interpret eu corri, preparei a palestra as involving 2 events, run and prepare the talk. Another possible meaning is 1 event, prepare the talk briskly in a fast way, or something like this, in a hasty way. But when you have like a verb sequence like corri, preparei, as in 11b, eu corri, preparei a palestra, you just have this 1 event meaning. Something like I prepare the talk briskly or in a hasty way. So the same goes for, when you have também, like in 11C, eu corri, preparei a palestra também, it has two meanings. You run and you also prepare the talk. But when you say something like, eu corri, preparei a palestra também, it just means like, I did it briskly too, I did it too briskly. Something like this, but it does not involve two events, it's just one. The same you can have the same thing you observe with when V1 is pegar. Eu peguei e larguei o livro, two meanings. Eu peguei e larguei o livro, one meaning. Eu peguei e larguei o livro também, you have two meanings. Eu peguei e larguei o livro também, you have only one meaning. I dropped the book or I left the book where it was. And something interesting is that when you have this multi-verb sequences that I think are serial verb constructions, you can say something like, eu peguei as coisas e fui embora, entendeu? Eu peguei as coisas e fui embora. But when you have a coordination, this is really weird. You cannot say, eu peguei as coisas e fui embora. So within this multi-verb sequences, you can have the same verb, pegar. The first one behaves more like, not a full verb, more like a light verb, and the second one as a full lexical verb. Now, if you have a coordination, you cannot do something like this. So it's just weird to say, eu peguei as coisas e fui embora. So, but another way of differentiating coordination from coordinated structures from serial verb constructions is by extraction. So while coordinated structures do not allow W8 movement, W8 extraction, unless you do ATB, serial verb constructions are just fine. They allow something like in 15, from Gumbe, data from Abo, no problem. Who habitually eats banana? What does he habitually eat? Sorry. These are all fine. So serial verb constructions are fine with W8 movement, W8 extraction, non-ATB W8 extraction, while coordinated structures are not. Now, when I look at Brazilian Portuguese, I got an interesting, an interesting set of data. So I don't think you can actually extract when you have these multi-verb constructions. You cannot say something like, o que você pegou e largou? O que você pegou, largou? O que você pegou, levou para ela? That's not so good. Qual porta você correu, fechou durante a tempestade? O que você foi comprou com o cartão? These are weird. I don't really, approve them. But you can say like something like, aqueles documentos eu peguei e queimei, sabe assim? Aqueles documentos eu peguei e queimei. A carta para a gente dar um golpe, eu peguei e queimei. Ó, eu peguei e guardei. O carro, eu fui vendi para pagar as contas. So topicalization seems fine, but WH movement do not. Now, if you have coordination, they are all fine. O que você pegou e levou para ela? Qual porta você correu e fechou durante a tempestade? O que você foi e comprou com o cartão? Aqueles documentos eu peguei e queimei. Olha, o carro eu fui e vendi para pagar as contas. So I don't really know what's going on with WH movement and A-bar extraction in this language. I really don't. This is something that will remain as a limitation of this work or a mystery in my mind. So another well-discussed aspect of property of serial verb constructions is that they display a single tense mood aspect system. So if you look at 18, you see that in Gumbe, for example, Wegbe, what you have is you have only one system of tense aspect and negation. So although there is some variation among these languages, for example, Gumbe, only the first verb can hold these markers, can carry these markers. And while Wegbe, it can be duplicated, it spreads throughout the series. Now, when I look at this multi-series sequences in Brazilian, multi-verb sequences in Brazilian Portuguese, I see something similar to rugby. I see that, tense and aspect, they spread out in the sequence. So you say something like, we can say something like, ele pegou, levou ela para o parque, but you cannot say, ele pegou, vai levar ela para o parque. So they have to share the same tense aspect system, but these markers, they spread in the sequence. So all the verbs will hold tense and aspect mark. So in 21 we have aspect. No meu sonho, ele pegava, largava as coisas tudo no chão. Na história, a menina corria e entrava no trem. So you see that the tense and aspect are spreading in the sequence. Now, negation is different. Negation happens only before V2. So there are certain the literature shows that it's possible in zero verb constructions for the negation to be between V2 and V1 and V2, like in Brazilian Portuguese. So you can say something like, ele pegou, não levou ela para o parque. A menina correu, não entrou no trem. But you cannot say something like, ele não pegou, levou ela para o parque. A menina não correu, entrou no trem. That's not really possible. So the negation is fixed between V1 and V2, and to me, it's better if it is, nun negation. It cannot be a full negation like now. It's more like nun negation. And as for double negation, something like ele não pegou, não levou. Let me see if I can do one very good here. Eu não fui comprei a calça, não. Eu não fui comprei a calça. Sometimes I think it's good, but I think it's not really, you cannot. I don't know. I don't think that double negation is possible. Sometimes I think it is. Sometimes I think it's not. For sure, when the negation is between the two verbs, it's good. Ele pegou, não levou ela para o parque. Eu corri, não abri a porta para ele. Those are all very good parts, very good sequences. Now, passivization is another task. It's I haven't seen it on the literature on verb constructions, but I tried passivization to see what happened. And in 24, it shows that you cannot passivize all the sequence. You cannot say something like, fui pegada, fui levada para o hospital. That's not possible. You can passivize V2. You can say, eu peguei, fui levada para o hospital. Ele correu, foi levado para o hospital. Ele foi levado para o hospital. Like you do have here in the internet, things like, seu espírito pegou, foi levado às influências das trevas. So you can passivize the second verb, but not V1. So V1 is not passivizable. So although it's really possible with coordination, so in coordinated structures, you can say something like, eu fui pegada e fui levada para o hospital. But in this zero multi-verb sequences, you cannot. Only the second verb can be passivized. So let's talk a little bit about the semantic typology of zero verb constructions. And Ross and Lockstrand, they consider 4 types of zero verb constructions. So motion zero verb constructions, in which you have verbs like go and come, take zero verb constructions that have verbs like take, and posture zero verb constructions involving verbs like sit, stand, and lie, and comparative zero verb constructions that are less common. And what they notice is that it's hard to find, or that is in their sample, it's hard to find languages that have all of this. So 34 languages have only one type, and the most common type is motion zero verb constructions. 30 languages have 2 types. Motion and take is the most common type, or motion and path. And 17 languages have the 3 types. Now, if you look at Brazilian Portuguese, you can say like, well, Brazilian Portuguese have motion zero verb constructions. Eu corri, preparei a palestra, or eu fui escrever essa carta para ele. And it can have take zero verb constructions. Eu peguei e dirigi para Brasília. I'm not really sure that the state cannot be, cannot be classified as motion. I think it can be classified as motion, like take, the verb take, pegar. But for sure, in Brazilian Portuguese, it cannot be interpreted as instrumental. I'll come back to it in a sec. On the top of it, we do have constructions like eu estudei, passei na prova. Eu lavei, desinfetei a casa inteira. Those look like consecutive verb constructions, more similar to the examples discussed in bake and steward, something like also future heat go sell, or musa cook yam sell. So that view one carries more semantic content. And I'm giving you here an example from the internet showing that these consecutive multi-verb sequences are indeed possible in Português. Eu estudei, passei na prova da academia. Contrário a todas as expectativas, probably. So, these zero verb constructions have received different accounts in the literature, syntactic analysis, and most of them discussing this whole idea of object sharing, Baker's object sharing hypothesis, in which he discusses this idea that the two verbs share the object. So the object in these structures are clearly marked by the two verbs. So here is the analysis he proposes in 89 and 91, and then Collins revised this analysis and said, like, well, it involves more like an empty category that is context with the object. So, but I agree with Pablo that it's not clear that you do have object sharing here, because in zero verb constructions, V1 behaves more like a functional head. It loses its lexical content, and it behaves more like a functional head within the projection of the main verb, and this of V2. And this analysis is more recent analysis. It is shared by many others, including those working on sign language. So, for example, in 34, you have data, 34, the data and the structure from Benedicto et al. And they assume that in this instruction from Catalan Sign Language and Argentinian Sign Language, you do have structure. You have these structures, and the interesting part is that the motion verb or the path verb, it reduplicates. So showing that and they take this reduplication to be multiple realization of copies, showing that this element moved to a functional projection above little v. And that's more or less what Abol had in mind too. For example, in 2009, he had this idea that the view one is merged in aspect, and then lower aspect phrase moves to a functional projection right above right above V1. And in 2015, he keeps the same analysis to data from Haitian Creole, showing that it's the same type of analysis. So you have V1 is the realization of an aspect phrase within the projection of V2. I think that the semantics of Brazilian zero verb constructions or multi-verb sequences suggest that V1 introduces an aspectful component relative to the event denoted by V2. So constructions like peguei, larguei, or eu fui, viajei, or corri, abri, V1 specifies that the event denoted by V2 was initialized in a brisk, impulsive way. Consecutive things like passei, estudei, passei, lavei, desinfetei a casa. V1 specifies the means or the cause by which the result denoted by V2 was achieved. So I think that we can extend this analysis that a Bo and the others have proposed. Like in 37, eu peguei lá a casa, you do have peguei as an instantiation of aspect, but it seems to move to a higher position because it surfaces in a position above neg P. So, but yesterday, thinking, listening to Cirino's talk, I thought like, well, maybe it's not that peguei moves to a position above neg P, but because you have a lower negation in this language. Although I must say that the data that Cirino was discussing yesterday, something like estou não trabalhando, does not really behave like what we have here, because as I said before, in these constructions, at least in my dialect, you cannot, it's better to use num. It's something like, eu peguei, não dei a carta para ele, para de ser besta. Eu peguei, não dei a carta, right? So, it's not really no. It's what, and when you say, you cannot say, não estou não trabalhando. That's not possible. So, I'm not sure that we are dealing with the same thing here. Maybe it's not the lower negation that Cilene was talking to, and maybe this is a case of movement, peguei, moving to a position above neg P. I don't know, but about negation in Brazilian Portuguese, we still have a lot to do. But maybe we should start with, for example, work done by Araújo, which is Jairo's student, PhD student, Cirino's work, to see what we can get. So another thing that is important to see here is that sentences with pegar different from what Abo noticed in Gumbe, for example. You cannot have an instrument right after V1. So you cannot say, you can say things like ele pegou, cortou o queijo com a faca. But you cannot say things like ele pegou a faca, cortou o queijo. That's possible, but that does not have this meaning we're looking for, in which pegar works like a aspect of verb. It's more like a coordinate structure. Also, I have to think that passivization of V2 is possible. So in the structure in 37, since peguei is merged, it's externally merged in aspect P, so VP can be passivized, but peguei survives passivization. That's what we saw before. And another important issue that is a verbal modification. V2 can be modified independently of V1. So you can say things like, ela correu, abriu a porta lentamente. So meaning two things. One, that correu is not really about the action of opening per se, but it's more about a sub-event of that initializing abrir. It's about the way the person initialized the action of abrir. And importantly, V1 cannot be modified. You cannot say ela correu rapidamente, abriu a porta. That's not a multi-verb sequence. It's more like a, if that's possible, it's more like a coordination than a verb sequence, because then correr does not hold this meaning that it's just aspect. So an important thing is that it can be stacked. You can say, eu fui, peguei, larguei as coisas tudo no chão, sai correndo. Eu fui, corri, fechei a porta. So you can have more than one aspectful verb, more than one V1 in these structures. And you know, we might be able to analyze these using Cinque's cartography, like Abo does, or we can go with Larson, the reinterpretation of cartography done by Larson. I don't know, both of them are fine. And although I am more a Larson person, I think both of them are fine. And it also to us that you can stack aspect, or you can stack V1 in these constructions, maybe because we do have more than one projection of aspect, or we do have a light aspect or whatever, according to us. So to conclude, let me just give you some thoughts on how serial verb constructions might have emerged in Brazilian Portuguese. So Abbo has this idea that serial verb constructions are restructuring within low domain. So it's just a subclass of clause union. It emerged in Creole languages as a result of a competition and selection of features from a pool feature determined by the languages and the context setting in which the speakers are inserted. Emerging languages like Haitian Creole or any other language, they recombine the syntactic and semantic features of their source language. So it's just like a process of recombining features. So you have formal features, and these features have to be combined with some semantic interpretation, some semantic feature. And so how they do this, it gives you, may give you serial verb constructions. So you get something that it was lexical in the substrate language and link it to formal features from the substrate language, and then you have serial verb construction. So Haitian Creole, the problem is that this transfer from one language to the other is not always perfect. So Haitian Creole display both high and low restructuring, but not all types of restructuring are possible because, for example, while Bumbe, that served as a substrate language to Haitian Creole, does have take serial verb construction, Haitian Creole does not. Haitian Creole does have serial verb constructions, but not take serial verb constructions. So how does this serial verb constructions or verb sequences emerge in Brazilian Portuguese? Well, I think we should look at Esmeralda Negrão and Biotti's work. Biotti was a student from Jairo and Enoch. She did a beautiful PhD with Jairo, and now she is working with Esmeralda Negrão on this, trying to uncover the inheritance of African languages in Brazilian Portuguese. So in this work of them, they report data from Bombini indicating that between the 16th and the 19th century, more than 4 million slaves were brought to Brazil against, I think, something around 700,000 Europeans. So the amount of slaves in this country were huge. And in the 18th century, in the area of Ouro Preto, Minas Gerais, a simplified language called Mina was spoken. I think you all know that I'm from Minas Gerais. So all this data I'm giving you are mostly from my native dialect, Dialeto Mineiro, from Triângulo Mineiro, close to Ouro Preto, right? Not too far from Ouro Preto. So in the 18th century, a simplified language called Mina was spoken in the area of Ouro Preto, and Mina was a general language based on the languages. In a period of 50 years, 100,000 slaves came from Benin to work on the mines of Ouro Preto. So it's not a surprise that we have serial verb constructions or multi-verb sequences, if you don't believe that they are serial verb constructions. But the interesting issue here is determining how it emerged in our grammar, which formal and semantic feature from African languages and Portuguese, the first people here, the children here crossed, right? Were crossed, giving rise to our light verb system and consequently to a serial verb constructions. So final thought on, let me just give you some final thoughts I have on restructuring my dialects. So in my dialects, you can say things like, ele pegou a contar mentira para ela. And we also can use the verb agarrar in the same way, though we reduce it to garrar. So we can say like, ele agarrou a contar mentira. And it has a habitual reading. It means like, it starts saying lies frequently. Now, preposition deletion takes place, causing clause union. So you can say things like, ele pegou contar mentira. ele agarrou contra a mentira. Ele agarrou contra a mentira. Importantly and interesting to us, both pegar and agarrar serves as V1 in silver constructions. Ele pegou, levou ela para o parque, ele agarrou, levou ela para o parque. So both of them are possible. But ficar is another verb that behaves like a light verb. You can say like, and it can also appear in this complex predicate in which you have V1, which is an aspectful verb, a preposition, and infinitive. Things like, ele ficou a falar merda para ela. But importantly, ficou does not reduce. So it does not go into clause union. You cannot say, ele ficou falar merda para ela. You can say, ele ficou falando merda para ela, with an ing, but it does not allow preposition deletion. Ficar do not serve as V1 in serial verb constructions. So you cannot say, ele ficou, falou isso para ela. You can't. So maybe it's a whole process here that verbs like motion verbs and take verbs, they are, from these verbs from Portugal, they were more prone to clause union than others. And that's why we got them and used them as V1, as light verbs, spectral verbs in serial verb constructions. That's why they fed serial verb construction, the emergence of serial verb constructions in Brazilian Portuguese. So that's it. I think I should stop here because I'm already done. And I hope eu tenha respondido a pergunta da Ruth. Hope I have answered, Ruth. Thank you.
Obrigado, Cilene, pela conferência. Alguém tem algum comentário, uma pergunta para a Cilene? Dado a hora, o atraso da gente ter por questões técnicas, uma pergunta. Vou copiar aqui no chat o link das comunicações. A Ruth tem aqui um comentário. O Jairo também tem.
That's right there. Yeah, that's very interesting. I thought about it. So you can, if you have cleared it will be in an intermediate position between V1 and V2. It does not go all the way up to above. It does not, it cannot precede V1. Eu me peguei e vesti. Yeah.
A Sônia.
What's Renato's question?
O Paulo Ângelo e o Renato também têm comentários aqui.
Oh yeah, how do both verbs realize morphology, tense and aspect morphology? Yeah, okay. That's a good question, but it's very common in serial verb constructions, Renato. Very common. We can discuss it later. I think my time is over.
Ok, thank you, Cilene. Thank you very much for your conference. Muito obrigado, Cilene. Muito obrigado às perguntas. A gente precisa andar para a próxima atividade, que já está aí o link. Começamos em seguida. Cilene, muito obrigado por ter trocado e salvado aqui a nossa programação. Até já.
Tchau, tchau. Obrigada.